Alright then guys, welcome to the video, welcome back to the channel, and here we go. This is going to be the first drive of the S2000. This will actually be the first drive where I've driven this thing on my own by myself on roads I know. Like I've taken family friends out and things like that, but I haven't actually been out on like roads actually driving this thing by myself. What else do I need to say really? Let's just jump in the car and let's get going. Alright then guys, let's get on with this. Obviously it's not raining and I've got a convertible, so it would be rude not to put the roof down. How sick is that? I don't know if that's ever gonna get old. So cool. Right, let's get on the road and go. It's such a surreal feeling actually driving this car. It is interesting driving the MX-5. Like, I know that was so random that that car popped up, but it's actually a really interesting comparison with this car. I think it's one of the first things I wouldn't mind changing is sort of sitting a bit lower down in this. I just feel like I'm almost on top of it, especially compared to the MX-5. But that can be easily solved with some seat rails, I hope. I'm not sure if that is possible with the standard seats. I am still such a basically an S2000 noob, really, in terms of parts and what have you. I literally haven't done any research on stuff with this yet. It's still so new, I'm still sort of just enjoying the car as is at the moment, because it's still only been a few days since I actually picked it up. The first impression driving around normally is too quiet. It's definitely too quiet. It needs an exhaust system and some sort of induction kit, because compared to the Civic, you just don't hear any sort of drama until you really get up in the revs. The other thing that I never really, well, I've never experienced it until this car actually, is how like every gear is so long, but the gear shifts are so notchy. It just feels incredible to change gear with this thing. I'm pretty sure like a lot of journalists and stuff said that it was one of the best gearboxes that they've ever driven a car with. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but there's so many things about this car that are just so cool for me. I've always loved the digital dash. I know it looks a bit dated nowadays, but there's still something about it that I just absolutely love the look of it. It's just so what everyone thought the future was going to look like back then, but it was so futuristic at the time. I'll put the windows up so you guys can hear me a bit better. So if I change that to third, so we're not in VTEC yet, still not in VTEC, there it goes. Even then I short shifted. The gears are so long in this thing, and I really haven't driven many rear wheel drive cars, so I'm not going to be pushing this thing or anything. I mean, even at standard this thing is just so, it just feels so good. Based on that corner just there that I take quite a lot in the Civic, I'd say it's already 75%, maybe 80% as good at handling as the Civic is, and obviously that's got coilovers, full suspension setup, emotion motorsport and all that stuff. So for this to be a standard car, absolutely mega that it drives this way. So it's got the wheels on it. I think the tyres are Nankang NS2Rs, basically a street legal track tyre really, so this is not a car for the wet. And to be honest, I didn't buy this car to be a daily driver, so ideally I won't be driving this thing in the wet anyway. I mean, saying that, the cloud I'm looking at right now is very grey, so I'm gonna hopefully not drive into any rain heading this way. It just feels dialed in, which is sick for a completely standard car. Like this thing fully set up must be amazing. I've heard stories about how you really need to make sure these are set up correctly, otherwise you get some crazy oversteer and stuff. So I definitely won't just be chucking coilovers on and leaving it like that. I think I'll definitely doing some research. So if anyone actually knows stuff about this car, can shed some light on the S2000 for me, that'd be amazing. But at the moment, even as a standard car, it feels great. I think it sits a bit too high from standard. So that's 9,000 RPM. So good. And that with an exhaust is going to sound so, well, and an induction kit, that is going to sound so good. I cannot wait for that. Okay, so that is legit the first time I've done like a first gear sort of pull. So I've stayed in VTEC in more than one gear. Completely different driving machine than it is when you're just trying to accelerate from lowering the RPM. That's nuts how different that is as a drive. What I've realised is pretty much any gear in this car feels like fourth gear in the EP3. Because VTEC is still so high up, if you're in any gear at like, let's say 4,000 RPM, the time it takes to do that 2,500 RPM to get you into VTEC, whatever RPM it is, the time that takes is so much longer than it is in the EP3 in any other gear. That's taken some getting used to, which is why that pull just then, that's the first real time I felt it go in VTEC through multiple gears, and it is a completely different car. I just can't believe this car's mine. I cannot believe that I'm driving this thing around right now. It is absolutely nuts. It's interesting actually having a soft top, because I found this with the MX-5 when I drove that for the first time, is you don't really feel like you need to go fast anywhere anymore. Like, it's just nice just to cruise around with the roof down. I mean, obviously once you get going, you're like, actually this is sick. Okay, so we're at 3,500 RPM now. Here we go, right. 4,000, 4,500, 5,000, 5,500, 6,000. There she goes. Still in third, still in third, still in third. There we go. That's how long every single gear is. But yeah, looking at this, the digital dash, the rev range just go up and up. It's so cool. It's definitely going to be interesting to see, like, in the future when I can get like the EP3 and the S2000 together as like which car's faster or whatever, because I feel like the mid-range gains that I've gained in the Civic compared to this will beat it. But then up top, is this faster? It's technically got more power. It's a very interesting one. I'm definitely interested to see the result of. It is very weird driving a car that's so quiet, unless you're smashing it around and you can hear it a bit more. But yeah, just driving around normally, it's just so silent, it's weird. Definitely needs to be louder because it will just make this thing sing, and I cannot wait for that. So I'm not actually totally sure on exhaust and stuff and what I'm going to go for with this thing yet. If any of you S2000 owners know of any good exhausts, I've heard that the Fujitsu, however you pronounce it, that exhaust I've heard is quite good. It's not that drony. I'm definitely not going for something crazy. It won't be like the Civic. To be honest, I'm probably going to change the Civic soon as well. That's a bit too drony for me. So I don't know whether it's just because it's completely standard or because I can't remember how it was standard with the AB3, but the crossover into VTEC doesn't feel as much of a kick in this. You hear it and you feel it a bit. I can only really remember the EP3 with the Tega induction kit, so without it, it was so long ago that I can't actually remember, but I feel like it was a louder crossover or more noticeable crossover in that car compared to this. It's also really novel for me because it's the second car. I don't have to like worry about making sure it's like back on the road with everything that I do to it. So like I can be like, oh, okay, so it's going to take a week to do this. That's fine because I've still got the Civic to drive around every day. My plans for it are pretty extensive. I have no idea when it's going to happen or in what order, because stuff for this car is way more expensive than it is for the Civic. The build's probably going to be even slower than the EP3. I'm probably going to do an exhaust before I do an induction kit because it just needs a bit more volume out the back, especially when you got the top down. All you want to hear is the exhaust singing. I think that's the sort of the first sort of plans, but at this point in time, I don't really know. Like, I've basically just spent all my money on buying the car, so I've got to save a bit more before I can start pulling the trigger on parts and what have you. But to be honest, I'll probably go through the plans, the sort of plans that I've got in a separate video, because they may change over time. I've realized, like, I love parts. Like, the cars are cool, but when you can build them with all these cool JDM parts, like, that's super cool to me. So there's so many little brands that I just don't know about yet because they didn't do stuff for the Civic. I know you've got your Voltex and your J's Racing and all of those big ones, but I feel like there's so many little brands that made cool stuff for this that I just don't know about yet. So I can't wait to find out all of those brands, see what parts they offer and see what I can get for this. But that's the main aim for this thing. Like, I'm not looking to build this thing quickly. This is a childhood dream car, so I'm looking to build it how I've always wanted to build one of these things. Man, this car is so cool. So cool. The other thing I noticed the other day, so I drove someone home at night, it was dry, so roof went down. The heater on this is like instantly hot. It was just a really pleasant surprise. Like, it was super hot, and these two vents just here just aim straight at your hand, so you can drive with the top down when it's cold because it blasts some pretty hot air at you, so you can stay warm while driving it. It's sick. The only weird thing I found so far, and I don't know if this is just an S2000 thing or it's a 20-year-old car thing, or seems to be whenever I accelerate and then come off the accelerator, I get some sort of weird rattling sound. It sounds like it would potentially be a heat shield or something. I need to do a bit of investigation on that. The other thing I was completely aware of it before I bought it, and it doesn't really bother me that much, but the clip that holds in the roof, when you unclip it and you can clip it back together, that bit of the clip's broken, so it latches in and locks. It won't sit there properly, so I need to look into getting a new one of those. But I think first up will be doing the head unit, because being able to plug my phone in so I can have audio in the car would be very useful, because I do have what I think is the standard head unit in this, which I think they are worth a bit of money now, but I'm going to hang on to it anyway. Yeah, so I'm hoping that can be just an easy swap. And there we go, guys. Yeah, this thing is mine, which I still is just nuts. And like I said in the video, there's a few bits I obviously want to change soonish. As you know, there's going to be plenty of videos on this car, so plenty of stuff to look forward to in the future. Don't forget to comment down below if you have any advice for me on bits and pieces for this car. Yeah, like I said, I really don't know that much about these things. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff with this car and with the Civic. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one.